Hi guys. I wanted to spend a few minutes going over this homework from a little while ago. Some of you turned it in, some of you didn't. Um, I'm sorry if I sound mean or angry in it. I'm neither one. I just am a little bit tired of repeating myself, and then people do what they want to do, and then they wonder why they don't get points. Okay, so the question was this one right here. They gave you, and this was back in Unit 5, right? Evaluate the extent to which Asian governments affected the spread of industrialization into their states. So that question is asking you, how much did Asian governments, affect the spread? How much did they get involved? In my mind, this is a causation question. Again, you are looking for ways in which they did or did not, right? Varieties of it. There are just two documents, and what this homework does is really creates like a nice mini paragraph for you, not mini paragraph, but mini essay for you, because on this shortened DBQ that you're going to be taking, I mean, there are 5 documents, you have to use 4. So if you can group 2 of them together in a common theme in one paragraph, and then group the other 2 together in a common theme in the other paragraph, and requirements of the rubric, you're in great shape. Okay, so the first thing, guys, that I asked you to do, right, is read the prompt and the 2 documents. Right, I wanted you to start with the topic sentence. I'm going to do another one of these using some of the videos from my friends who are the AP Euro readers, just to kind of reinforce this idea of a topic sentence with you. I'm sure when the world readers, when the world presenters, do their thing with the time DBQs they're doing, they're going to reinforce the same idea, right? Starting a paragraph with the name of a document doesn't help the reader to figure out what is going on, right? What are you going to prove? And it doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be a topic sentence is a small claim that you are going to prove in that paragraph, right? I wanted you to use both documents to support your claim. Now, that being said, right, just describing the documents, right? Document 1 is a letter about railroads and telegraphs. Right? That doesn't prove anything. Right? And you're going to see in the 2 samples I'm going to give you how you can better do that. It wanted you to attempt to analyze the source of at least one document and add evidence from outside the document that supports your claim made in the topic sentence. So let's take a quick look, and we can always go back to these documents if you want, or you can look through them. Generally, right, what's going on in document 1? I'll go through them real quickly. This is Shen Baozhen, who works for the Qing dynasty and is an advocate of domestic reforms. To advocate something means that you are in favor of it. So he works for the government, but he is in favor of making internal economic and political reforms. And this is a memorandum to the Qing court where the emperor is, meaning he's written this to the court, right, advising or answering a question. That's what a memorandum is, right? Principals send out memos to us every day now with the COVID crisis on what should we do with grading. It doesn't mean that he's in charge of everything, but it's a piece of advice. Okay, and if you read he's an advocate of domestic reforms, that's going to tell you something that he's probably in favor of making some changes. The second one here is an Ottoman government report concerning a proposal to build a railway from Damascus, which is in Syria, to Mecca, which is written in 1893. So this is going on in the Ottoman government. You should know that is the modern day area of Turkey, the Ottoman Empire in this period of time, right? You've got to be able to pull out of this and grab a couple of pieces of things that you know. It's a report, right? Governments issue reports all the time. Right, it's the official stated position of the government. The governor, Governor Cuomo issues reports all day, right, or every day on COVID, which is the stance of the government. All right, so what do both of these say? Just real quickly, this is a question about telegraphs and railroads. The author harkens back to talk about how a previous dynasty, you gotta be careful because that's the Qing dynasty and that's the Qin dynasty, how the Qin dynasty built the Great Wall, excuse me, it's the COVID, that initially wasn't seen well, but later generations relied on it. It's arguing here that telegraphs and railroads are built, China will probably benefit from them in the future as well, that the work of constructing them is enormous, and it will be beneficial to poor people now, right? However, the foreigners are coming to the court wanting a treaty to permit them to begin work, and he is advising the court against doing that. Then he says, perhaps, right? Perhaps is going to be, right? He's saying, don't do it. He's saying, well, perhaps it could give its generous permission, but only if the Western interest can devise a plan that would guarantee, right, the fields, the houses, the ancestral graves would be harmed the least. In other words, right, he seems to be concerned that the Western powers are going to build this railroad and just plow over villages, burial grounds, and the like. And, you know, in my mind at that point, that kind of gets the idea of Confucianism and filial piety in my mind, right? This idea that protecting ancestral graves would be important because of the faith of that area. And there's some other things I'll talk about with that, right? On the other hand here, right, you've got some things going on in less an alternative way other than the Suez Canal controlled by the British. So you got to know that the Suez Canal is in Egypt. It's run by the British. Right, is found to connect the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. Well, again, this is how much can you pull from your outside knowledge? If they're holy cities, and this is the Ottoman Empire, hopefully you've connected that to, oh, that's right, that's Islam, right? That this is an Islamic government, and that those two cities are important cities for that religion, right? So unless an alternative way other than the Suez Canal, which is controlled by a foreigner, is found to connect these holy cities and the rest of the empire, the Red Sea coast of Arabia might fall prey to the evils of those who strive to overthrow the very foundations of the caliphate. In other words, if you can't connect these territories together, right, this area along the Red Sea, which would be in the southwestern corner of the Arabian Peninsula, are threatened by European imperialism, right? At present, Muslims going on pilgrimage must either use foreign ships where they're subjected to humiliation or travel by camel, a very challenging journey through months of drought. So in other words, right, if you're going to make this trip, right, to Mecca, generally, you either have to rely on foreigners or the travel is brutal. It has become necessary to construct a railway in the region, both to solve these problems and to show the power of the caliph. In other words, the caliph is the head of all the Muslims. In this case, the Ottoman Sultan sees himself as the caliph. The railway has to be built solely by Muslim involvement by obtaining a huge amount of finance from the Islamic world and recruiting Muslim engineers in its construction. Right? This is not somebody here that's willing to engage foreign companies. Right? He seems to be concerned about having foreign finance or foreign Muslim engineers, right? Our Sultan must personally lead this highly significant undertaking. Muslims across the world hold our Sultan in very high regard. Therefore, people of the political and economic influence will not hesitate to allocate some of their assets to this cause when they see our Sultan personally leading the initiative. I'm going to show you in the first response how this is blowing smoke up the Sultan's butt, right? You've got this guy, who's ever writing this, it's an official report. Well, who's the head of the government? The Sultan. So, right, what is he saying here? Of course, Muslims from all over the world would be happy to give their money, just give their money to the Sultan because he's so well thought of and they want his greatness to lead this initiative. If you can begin to read some of these things with a little bit of sarcasm in your voice, you'd be amazed how quickly you'll get some of the point of view. All right, so next screen. This is from the two gentlemen doing the AP World reading. This is what their paragraph looks like, and it is, in my mind, a very basic paragraph. This is at the lower end of what might be acceptable. I've talked about this with some of my AP Euro friends. We don't quite love the sourcing. We don't love this. This is just the minimum of what they were able to do, right? So let's look at the topic sentence. In many Asian states, governments attempt to take direct control of the industrial process. So this is the claim they need to prove. Let's look here in the green if they are giving me examples of it. Not that they are describing the document at length. No, are they giving me examples? Now, what I like, what he does here, and I'll do it in my paragraph that you'll see, is he's giving the name of the person doing it, right? Bao Zhen insists, right? Love that verb. He's insisting in a memorandum to the Qing leader, right? And that's almost point of view or purpose and audience, right? He's insisting that a railroad must not be built unless the government can have direct control over the planned routes, right? That's what he's saying down here. Don't give them permission to build, that the government must be in charge of it. Does this show evidence of the government taking direct control of the industrial process? Yes. Likewise. The word likewise says, here's another example. Right? Another example of governments taking direct control of the industrial process can be seen, right, in document 2. Same way to phrase it. Likewise, a report by the Ottoman government states that a railroad is a necessity, but it must be directed by the Sultan, who can ensure only Muslim involvement. Does that work with that? Yes, it does. They're giving this for sourcing. Because the report is attempting to persuade the Ottoman Sultan to take action, right? That's what's going on, right? The government report is trying to, and it is inferred, it is not explicit, it is inferred. The reader is inferring this report is attempting to persuade the government to take action, right? And in this case, the Sultan. The document includes a lot of flattery to the Sultan, right? Because isn't that how we get people to do what we want them to do? Gosh, you look nice today, Mom. Can I have the keys to the car? Right? That's the things that we do as human beings. Right? What I like generally is the structure here of the outside evidence beyond the document. Now, remember, you just can't point at something and say evidence, right? Because that's a fact. And evidence has to support this contention here of governments attempting to take direct control of the industrial process. And it has to have something specific, something to be capitalized, the vocabulary word, right? And then this little stem here is nice, much like the Ottoman and Chinese governments, right? So the author of this is comparing this next piece to the two pieces of evidence it has in the paragraph. Japan took direct control of its industrial process. Look at the direct control of its industrial process. It goes right back to the topic sentence. Okay, I've said this for 2 years now as your teacher. You write a clear topic sentence in your paragraph and you spend the entire paragraph proving it. Right? Always be proving the claim. Right? Always be proving. That's what your job is. Your job is nothing else than to have a claim and attempt to prove it. And in this case, right, much like the Ottoman Chinese government, Japan took direct control of its industrial process as a part of the Meiji Restoration. Ding, 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 ding. I see Meiji Restoration after the U.S. forced Japan to sign unequal treaties. Right? That's fine. I don't actually love that. When I see unequal treaties, I think China a little bit more. But yeah, that does the job. Okay. So Mr. Summer cannot help himself. So he wrote a very complex paragraph that's very long, far from perfect, although it has all the points, right? But I did want to show you a couple of things in here that some of you do. And some of you do well, and some of you do poorly, right? There's not just one way to do something, okay? So start off with my topic sentence, which you should be able to see here is in yellow. One way Asian governments affected the spread of industrialization in their states was by trying to take direct control of the industrial process. Well, great minds think alike. I came up with kind of the same idea as the previous. The reason I wrote it this way is because if I was writing an entire essay about how Asian governments took control of the industrial process, right, this paragraph might just be one way in which they did it, and another paragraph might be, right, the topic sentence would be another way Asian governments. Okay, not trying to confuse you, just it's the way I write topic sentences. So let's see whether or not, right, I prove that Asian governments tried to take direct control of the industrial process, right? And then after that, I just went with one example of this can be seen in China. Okay, I made that yellow as well because that to me is part of a topic sentence, right? I am giving you my claim and now I'm going to show you an example where Shen Baozhen, a Qing official, makes the case for direct government control in a memorandum to the Qing court. Now, I tend to source a little bit differently than they did, right? I'm telling you, right, what is the basic argument? What's basically he doing, right? He's making a case for the direct government control, right, of direct government control in a memorandum. And direct is nodding to the industrial process. I could have said railroads there, right? This is a one-time through. I didn't go through and edit anything. This is green. I'll explain why it's green in a second. Baozhen argues that the construction of telegraphs and the railways, much like the construction of the Great Wall in China's past, would have long-lasting benefits to China. In addition, he infers that China is not necessarily in the position to build telegraphs and railways on their own, but will have to arrange a treaty with foreign powers that would, okay, guys, this is how you quote if you need to quote, that would guarantee that no arable fields, houses, and ancestral farms would be harmed, right? It's part of the argument I'm making. I'm going on to, at length here, describe analytically what is going on, right? Because I've included things like no long-lasting benefits. China is not in the position to build telegraphs. All of that is inferred by my reading of it. While the Qing dynasty might not be building the railway, Baozhen argues that the government should be setting the terms for these infrastructure projects, right? So what have I done here? I guess that could be blue, right? I'm telling you the idea of the document. I am telling you, right, that the government should be setting the terms, which is that concept there, right? That they should be taking control. Okay, my red is my sourcing. I sourced both, and I did each a little differently in the hopes that you would see that there's not just one way, right? It is interesting that Baozhen compares the construction of the construction of the telegraph and railways to the construction of the Great Wall, in that he harkens back to China's glorious past. Okay, a lot of you stop there, possibly in an attempt to persuade a backwards, look at the adjectives and verbs, to persuade a backwards looking Qing court, right? We know at this time period that the Qing court, which is struggling against a more modern, technologically advanced Western powers, right, that they might be more backward looking in the importance of these new infrastructure projects. In other words, I'm telling you how he is, you know, my previous days as a politician come in there. How is he spinning his argument to make it palatable to China? And yes, that's a source all the time, right? I am telling you, what is this point of, I'm telling you purpose and audience in this. I am combined both of them, right? I'm telling you that he's comparing them in an attempt to persuade the Qing court. Why? Because they're backward looking, right? In the importance of this. And it's not the only way you can do that. So now I did the second half of this same paragraph a little differently, because I wanted to show you there's not just one order, although for those of you that struggle, right, a little bit more of this order might make more sense, or the one that I'm going to show you in another video from the AP people might make more sense. I don't know, I wrote this, so I wanted to share. Another example of an Asian government to take direct control of the industrial process can be seen in an Ottoman Empire government report from 1893. Again, I'm trying to give examples of the topic sentence, right? What's the idea? Direct control of the industrial process. Here's another example. I named the document. I could have put document whatever there, document 2 there, although I go on to explain a lot more there. Right? Now, what I do here, and I did it purposely, is I sourced it after that. Right? I'm giving you the context. One thing about what's going on in the Ottoman Empire at this time. One thing to remember about the Ottoman Empire during this time is that they are in rapidly decline in both external and internal power. The Ottomans are commonly known as the sick men in Europe and are struggling to resist Western imperialism. Right? So what have I done? What's going on at this period? The Ottomans are in decline. They're known as the sick man of Europe, right? There's the specific piece of evidence or fact. Why is this important? Because they are struggling to resist Western imperialism as their empire is in decline. And that helps inform the document. In this government report, it is argued that the Hajj to Mecca is threatened by the British control of the Suez Canal in Egypt, and that in order to protect the pilgrimage to Mecca, which is one of the 5 pillars of Islam and an obligation to every Muslim, that the construction of a railroad is necessary both to make the journey easier, but also to, and again, I'm showing you the proper way of using a quote, show the power of the Caliph, document 2. Okay, now I wrote this differently on purpose, right, to show you that what am I doing, right? I'm telling you what's in the document. I'm going to make the claim that this, in some respects, inside my sentence, is outside information. I am telling you, we could argue that it's sourcing, but if I hadn't sourced it, maybe we could talk about sourcing, because I'm telling you that this is important because the Hajj, which isn't in there, which just means the pilgrimage, is one of the 5 pillars and an obligation. That's why it's so important in this document. Okay. Unfortunately, both of these governments will be unsuccessful in their attempts to take direct control of the industrial process, especially when compared to the Japanese during the Meiji Restoration, who embraced the technology of the West while also modernizing and educating their society. Right? So I do that little bit at the end differently with my outside information, right? I'm saying these two, right? I could have gone on and written more. Neither one of these, we know, you should know that neither China nor the Ottomans are going to be successful, right? And hopefully you remember that the Japanese actually are successful. Right? Now, the other thing that I do here, because I'm comparing it to someone that's successful, kind of inferring why it's not, is this is what that unicorn point looks like. Hopefully, this last, my paragraph didn't make things worse, right? This is where I kind of hope most of you need to be able to get to, right? Write the clear topic sentence with a claim that makes sense, direct control. Use just, one example is this, right? Where they're doing this, but make sure you explain your example back to your topic sentence. Another example is this. Okay. This is the way I write. But even when you look at the way I write, okay, there are some things that are massively repetitive in here. You'll also notice one thing you don't see in here is me using a lot of words like it, them, he, she, thing, it, stuff, right? And when I do use it, it's like, it is interesting. I keep naming the people. I keep using the names of the dynasty. I keep making sure that the reader knows. If you're reading this paragraph, you ask yourself, yeah, do I have a claim? Is he using the evidence? Yeah, I can see it. It's so evident because they're even doing this. Another example, right? Can I find the outside evidence? Yeah, because he's added one thing on there at the end. It's easy to find. All right, so guys, I hope you're still watching. I hope this helps. I hope. I'll be sharing this shortly, and then I'll be going over one of the AP DBQs from my friends, although you should just listen to them do it. They're much smarter and better than I am. but I will go over their stuff to show it to you in a day or so.